Infect deck is favored, right? Because it's kind of a combo deck. It's pretty fast, and you really don't have to assemble too much. It's just like an Invigorate and a Berserk and maybe some sort of Daze or Spell Pierce or Force of Will to protect your creature from that Lightning Bolt that the burn deck might have, right?
Right, so we see, remember, players in the top 8 get access to each other's deck lists. Todd paid for Jataxian Probe there. Drew his card, and he's going to pass back. Robert Wright, 3 lands, 4 burn spells. He's going to start with suspending a Rift Bolt. And like, so interesting question here if you're the burn player. So say Todd makes Blighted Agent, you know, where do you point your Rift Bolts?
Probably at the agent, although if his second land is an Inkmoth Nexus, then it's like, all right, we're going upstairs.
It's like, what's the point? He's got a creature, I'm never going to kill it. And go upstairs he will, Todd down to 17. And this is one, a lot of times we've seen Infect do well in our other matches on camera from its strength of nickel and diming people, you know, Pendelhavens, Noble Hierarchs. Is it fair to say in this matchup, it's not that, but it's the Invigorates and the Berserks that you want?
Yeah, I mean, you certainly can nickel and dime them, right? That is an option. But I think since, despite burn being full of, you know, burn spells, they're not all lightning bolts. They don't all target creatures. They're not all as efficient as lightning bolt. You have things like Chain Lightning, which doesn't touch Inkmoth Nexus. You have things like Rift Bolt, which also don't touch Inkmoth Nexus. So really you have Lightning Bolt for interaction and Searing Blaze, maybe Grim Lavamancer if it gets active. But if you're trying to point a Fire Blast at a creature, that's probably not a winning proposition for you. So I feel like it's going to be pretty easy for Todd to actually protect one of his creatures.
Well, Todd's done a good job of protecting himself right now. Robert had a turn 2 Eidolon of the Great Revel, but Todd was able to hard cast a Daze at it. And then on his next turn, play Noble Hierarch, activate Inkmoth Nexus, and swing in for 2 Infect. It's kind of interesting, right? Todd's at 16 and Robert's at 2 Poison, which is in a lot of ways like he's also at 16.
Yeah, it's effectively 16.
So the race is on Goblin Guide, drawn from Robert. This is on turn 3, a little late. Still probably good as an attacker here. I mean, it's not going to block Inkmoth.
No, certainly not. And you know, you might be like, oh, you know, it's going to give Todd a bunch of extra cards, but it really doesn't matter, right? Like, this burn deck is trying to do exactly that, reduce its opponent's life total to 0 by any means necessary.
Yeah, it shows the Daze on top, hits Todd down to 14. And, I mean, right, like, even if you give Todd extra cards, there's only a couple kinds of cards that actually matter here, right? You know, if you give him a land, I guess you could dig him closer to an Invigorate, and
exactly.
That would be bad.
Exactly. Or if Todd has a Brainstorm, that allows him to maybe trade in those extra lands for fresh cards.
Sure.
But you see, like, Robert got to see this Daze on top of Todd's deck. So now he knows, like,
yeah.
oh, I might have to play around that. So it's like, is Goblin Guide a drawback? Really?
Yeah, and that's why, like, Goblin Guide is great in burn decks for that reason you mentioned. All right, so Todd goes on to 14, though, and Robert, knowing a Daze is on the way, he's going to follow up with a land and a Searing Blaze on Noble Hierarch. That's 3 to the human, 3 to Todd. Todd goes to 11. And more importantly, Todd loses his Exalted for that Inkmoth.
Yeah, so his clock is cut in half, and I think Robert might be a little disappointed by the fact that that Daze was on top, because it seemed like he wanted to keep that fetch line open and use the Searing Blaze to actually target the Inkmoth, because that is one of the few ways to actually interact with it. But wisely, knowing that that Daze was coming, he just chose to burn it on the Noble Hierarch.
Yeah, Goblin Guide swings in again. Todd's going to go down to 9. The top card is Blighted Agent. He has a new Infector, but we know the jig in his hand. He has yet another land and a Daze. Todd, without a pump spell, seems like he's on the wrong end of this race.
Yeah, he is. I mean, a mulligan to 6 on the play. You don't have a ton of resources to work with, and he used a Daze to stop an Eidolon, which, granted, he had to do, but I think he would be fine with letting that resolve if he had the combo in hand, you know?
Absolutely. Swings in here, and now he's going to go and Lava Spike upstairs. Todd's going to take 3 more. And Chain Lightning, that's 3 more. Todd down to 3, and there's Lightning Bolt, and that is all 20. Robert Wright takes game 1.
Sometimes it's just that easy.
Yeah, sometimes you just cast all your spells, and then they resolve and they die.
Right.
Yeah. Not too many decisions there. Todd's hand really fell apart on him, it seemed like. Being aggressive with the Searing Blaze, I think, was pretty good on Robert's part. You know, being like, okay, yeah, I have to hit the Noble Hierarch here.
Right. I mean, not only did he recognize that, like, okay, yeah, I kind of want to hit this Inkmoth, right? But I get in my 3 points of damage now, and then based on, like, that damage, the Goblin Guide damage next turn, because presumably it's going to get through unblocked, and the spells I have in my hand, like, we're going to be able to light Todd on fire.
Right. So he just eyes on the prize. No burn spells pointed anywhere else. He even had a Lightning Bolt in his hand. It never went at the Inkmoth Nexus.
No, it didn't need to.
Right. Exactly. So right now, Robert Wright is up a game. We're going to bring you back in the booth here, though. It is our second top 8 of the day. That means we are going to give away more Star City Games premium subscriptions. 3, 6, and 12 months of Star City Games will be available in the top 8, the top 4, and the finals of our coverage here. So how it works is after game 1 of the beginning of the round, we ask you a question. You have until the end of the round to answer. If you put the hashtag SCG Premium on your answer and you have the correct answer, then you could be randomly selected to win some Star City Games premium content. So we are right now in the round of top 8. So we're going to do 3 months right now. We are looking at the Infect deck of Todd Anderson. We're wondering, so we talk about the pump spells in his deck. I'm wondering what legendary land is a 2 of in the blue-green Infect piloted by Todd Anderson. If you believe you know the answer, seems weird you'd have 2 of a legendary land. You can't even play the second one, but
yeah.
You probably do it anyway.
It's good enough that it's worth playing 2 of and running that risk. And you always have Brainstorm to shuffle it back in.
You get to do stuff like that in Legacy. But if you believe you know the answer, tweet us. Make sure you have the hashtag SCG Premium on your tweet and tweet it at SCG Live. You have until the end of the round to submit an answer. All right, but back to our match. That quick game 1, I don't know, I imagine, having watched the Invitational with Tom Ross, we're going to have a lot of quick games here at Blue-Green Infect.
Yeah, almost certainly. I mean, either it's winning quickly or probably losing pretty quickly, especially when you're paired up against a deck like Burn.
Yeah. Going ahead and look at the sideboard. I'm going to start on Robert Wright's side. He's got a Forked Bolt. That seems pretty good. It kills an Infector. Do you like Red Blast? And Ink Moth's an artifact, right?
Yeah.
Do you like Smash to Smithereens?
Smash Smithereens seems okay. Fork Bolt seems pretty good. And Red Elemental Blast seems like you're choosing to fight a battle over the cards that don't really matter.
So yeah, tell me, okay, so elaborate that. What are the cards then that do matter?
Invigorate, Berserk, those cards. However, Red Elemental Blast does allow you to actually fight over those cards. Like, say you point a Lightning Bolt or, even a Smash to Smithereens at an Inkmoth Nexus. And Todd's like, that's probably like in response to an Invigorate. And then Todd's like, okay, I'll force it. Well, that allows you to actually fight over that instead of just being helpless. Like, instead of being able to fight over Todd's counterspells to like protect your interaction, instead you would need another copy of Lightning Bolt, which you might not have.
Yeah. So in the end of the day, what do you say? Yay or nay on Red Blast?
I would say nay on Red Blast unless you wanted to bring in like 1. I feel like you can draw 1 and it might actually end up being pretty good. However, if you end up drawing multiples, that's going to be pretty bad because this burn deck doesn't have something like Brainstorm where you can just shuffle away dead copies of the card.
No, if you draw Red Elemental Blast, you're drawing a spell that deals 0.
Right. And Robert also has Pithing Needle, which he can potentially bring in against Inkmoth Nexus if he thinks that that's a big problem. But I think I would rather just have Smash to Smithereens. Like, you don't want to load up on a bunch of cards that are only really good against Inkmoth. And if you do want something against Inkmoth, you probably want the one that kills it and also deals Todd damage.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the dangers of the burn deck is over sideboarding, to be sure. Your deck's combo is resolving 6 spells, except the spells that don't deal damage, they don't count toward that, interaction. So it's got to be doing something real good if you want to board it in.
Yeah.
And we are underway with game 2. We're going to look at a little bit at Todd's board. He does have cards like Spell Skite that he can now use in this matchup, but largely I would expect players to be on their game 1 plans yet again.
Yeah, I mean, Todd does have 2 blue Elemental Blasts, which seem pretty good here.
Yeah, his deck's all red cards. This time Todd's on 7, so is Robert. Todd starts out with a Tropical Island. Robert has a turn 1 Goblin Guide, however, does draw a card for Todd, but as we said before, it's not really about the card advantage in this matchup. And it's Inkmoth Nexus into Blighted Agent for Todd.
Yeah, so that's great for Todd. Now he has 2 potential threats on the table, and it's going to be really tough for Robert to deal with both of them in a short time span, right?
Yeah. Well, the Red Blasts have come in here, and one came and took out the Blighted Agent. Robert swings in for 2 more, and Todd's at 16. That seems worthwhile, right? That was a fine Red Blast. It didn't deal damage, but we're okay with this.
Yeah, I mean, it depends what you're siding out for that. It's probably something along the lines of Rift Bolt or Lava Spike, which either doesn't target creatures or is just really slow. I could also see Price of Progress coming out here.
Sure. So I said I haven't played this matchup much in Legacy. I have played this one in Modern, actually, being on the Lava Spike side of it. It seems like the top cards for Robert in this matchup is like Searing Blaze seems to be top of the level of things he wants to be doing.
Right. Not only does he want to be interacting with Todd to some degree, but the fact that he gets to kill a creature and deal Todd's damage and continue your A plan is, it makes it probably like one of the best cards in the matchup, if not the best. The only thing that I would think makes it not be the best card is just the fact that it costs 2 mana.
Yeah, absolutely. Todd got another free card off that Goblin Guide. It was an Ink Moth. You see this turn he brainstorms, then he cracks a fetch here, trying to improve his hand as he takes beats from the Goblin Guide. Remember, Todd's not really going to remove that card very easily, but he does have another Infector. This is Blighted Agent number 2. Right now, Todd losing the race. He's at 15. He has no poison on Robert. And Forked Bolt 1 and 1. It's kind of like a mini Searing Blaze here. And that'll put Todd to 14. Robert, he's going to be in a land, then an attack. Todd is going to go to 12. Does he get another card? No, but he does find Vines of Astwood. We know he has a Berserk in his hand as well.
Yeah, I think that might have been what Todd was looking for.
With 2 Dazes, Vines, and Berserk, Todd may just 10 his opponent right now.
He might just be going for the kill. I guess he can't do it on this turn because he needs 3 green mana total, but he has 2 Dazes as backup, which might be enough.
Noble Hierarch is the play. And he will swing with Ink Moth, and it will Exalt. Robert looks like he's going to try to kill it. We see a fetch land crack here. That smells like it might be a Searing Blaze, but we know there's a bunch of Dazes waiting for that one.
Yeah. And normally, I think, seeing as how Todd, with the Noble Hierarch, has the requisite 3 green mana, he has Ink Moth to activate the other Ink Moth next turn. So next turn, he can attack, cast Vines of the Vastwood with Kicker, cast Berserk, and try to go for lethal with double Daze backup. But here, since he has a Daze, he's fine walking it into a Searing Blaze, especially since Robert might have 4 mana on his next turn. Maybe those Dazes aren't even live.
Yeah.
And now you're just kind of bleeding the spells that Robert has to interact with you out of his hand too.
Yeah, it was Searing Blaze and the Daze was cast by Todd. So Robert now gets 2 poison on him. And you do see, in Berserk and I believe Invigorate in Todd's hand. He has the 1-2 punch.
Or he has the Vines, right?
Or the Vines,
yeah.
You're right. It's not the complete nut. It's the backup pump spell.
Right, yeah, the one that you actually have to pay mana for.
All right, a fetch land for Robert's land number 4. This can become too many lands unless Robert has Fire Blast, in which case they're awesome. I do know he has a Price of Progress in his hand as he knocked Todd down to 10 there.
So that's not too bad. I mean, if Todd has to play out his land, he has 4 non-basics.
And here he goes.
That's close.
Ink Moth's going to swing. It exalts up to a 2-2. Is Todd going for broke? He has 3 green. He can do everything. The danger is he has to use the Vines when he really wouldn't want to. And he's just going to deal 2 to Robert.
Yeah.
So, like, if Robert had tapped mana, I do think Todd would have went for it, but his Dazes just aren't live enough right now. And you can't Berserk first. You have to Vines first.
Right. It's just whether or not Todd actually has the time to actually be trying to be careful and, like, play around what Robert could potentially have.
It seems like it. Now, the danger here is that Price of Progress in Robert's hand.
Yeah.
Todd can Daze it, and it will still resolve. He will only take 6 instead of 8.
Well, he can also use Crop Rotation to get rid of one of his non-basics, probably another Tropical Island, and then find the basic forest in his deck. That's another way to mitigate the damage from Price of Progress if he wants to.
So he can go down to, so he can only take, he can make it only a 4-point burn spell.
Yeah, so maybe he feels like, he has enough stuff to cover him against 10 points of burn.
And here's a swing from Goblin Guide, another Vines on top. I imagine we'll see a Glistener Elf chump here. Todd has to decide. It certainly is appealing to go for it.
Yeah, I mean, that would not surprise me either. He has the Inkmoth Nexuses, and Robert's at 4, so Todd's not really in a position to actually nickel and dime him out. But we do see a Crop Rotation, presumably getting a Pendelhaven.
And this is actually a dangerous line from Todd here. He is opening himself up to Price of Progress a little more than I think he would want.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly true, but at the same time, he's a little wary of actually trying to go for it against a bunch of open mountains.
Okay, so hear me out on this one. He did just take Glistener Elf here, which is great. Is this noticeably better than just chumping with Glistener Elf?
Yes, I think so, because now he has an extra green mana.
Sure.
Well, I guess that doesn't really matter because he had to shuffle away the Vines to Crop Rotation.
Well, he can just pump the Glistener Elf, exalt the Glistener Elf, and Berserk it. And that's actually 6 Infect.
That is true, and then he has vines for backup. And
He has 2 vines for backup.
no, he had to shuffle away the other one.
Okay.
But now he drew a Force of Will for his turn, so now he might actually have enough things to force this through.
He's going to go for the kill. That is 6, and Robert doesn't even have the first removal spell, not to mention it would have taken 3 to get there.
Right.
So Todd evens it up at 1 game apiece.
Yeah, so that was really good sequencing by Todd.
Yeah, I do like how that played. You know, and this is what I've always what we're talking about. Where I think maybe the deck is being misunderstood. People are thinking about it as this really fast combo deck, but you watch Todd play this, and this is true when Tom Ross plays it too. Like, they never go for it. You know, they leave up mana and just swing for 2, and then 3, and then 2, and then then you're probably dead.
Right. And that's part of the beauty of this deck, right? Is that, like, you don't have to go for it. You can wait. It's kind of like High Tide in that way, right? Where it's just like...
You never really want to go for it. You have all the pressure.
Yeah, and then eventually when they have like 7 infect, it's like, oh crap, now I actually have to start doing stuff.
And then you get to cast your vines. When they try to stop you, then you're like, well, I have like a vines and a pump spell, and you're not going to get through on this one.
Right. That's exactly what we saw there, where it's like, he's kind of choked on green mana, and he'll have to use the vines as the pump spell, and Robert can respond to that, and that's not great. But Todd got himself into a situation where he was able to use the vines as a protection spell just by getting in a little chip damage with his Inkmoth Nexuses.
Yeah, Brad Nelson, and an update from the other part of this half of the bracket. He is up a game on Matthew Webster. He's playing the Infect Mirror. We may set up an Infect showdown here between Todd and Brad, or will Robert Wright play the part of the spoiler here with Burn? It's going to be a close game 3. Looking at that last game, I still actually liked where Burn was sitting in this matchup. Robert ended up with on 4 lands in play, 2 in hand.
Right.
This is like just a thing you have to accept when you play Burn. Like, this is going to happen, and when it happens, you will lose sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes. But a lot of the decks in Legacy actually give you a decent amount of time if you're getting paired against the fair decks. Infect is one of those decks that kind of functions like a fair deck, but it has this combo kill.
Yeah. The danger here is, like, Robert, when you look at the spells he cast a Forked Bolt, which dealt Todd 1, a Red Elemental Blast, which dealt Todd 0, and then he let a Searing Blaze get dazed. So there were, between 3 of the spells he resolved or attempted to cast, they combined for 1 damage.
Right.
And that is a very dangerous place to be in for Burn.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, but he also had the price of progress at the end. He could have gotten Todd pretty low if he wanted to.
Yeah, he was not very far away. You're right. He, I think he could have put Todd to probably to 4. If he needed to.
Yeah.
And granted, 4 is not 0, so why show the card? But he wasn't. He was a Fire Blast away from possibly having the kill.
Yep, definitely agree with that.
We'll see here, 7 on each side. Game 3. Where do you want to be here? Burn gets to be on the play. You want to be the Burn player?
I don't know. This is kind of scary. Like from Todd's side, it's like, yeah, okay, Burn is kind of fast, right? But Infect's a combo deck, so you would think that Infect is favored. Like, that's kind of what's been holding Burn back this entire time.
Yeah.
Is just the presence of combo. Things like Storm, Charbelcher. It's just like, you really don't have a whole lot of interaction. Now you have Eidolon of the Great Revel, and that helps. But, like, this Burn deck is also pretty fast.
Robert, with the turn 1 Goblin Guide on the play, that is the scariest thing you can face down here. Is that guy's liable to do a ton of damage. He swings in, deals 2 to Todd. Todd reveals one of his board cards. That's Spellskite.
Modern All-Star Spellskite.
Yeah. You can play them in Legacy, even when there are no Splinter Twins in the format.
There might be some Splinter Twins. You never know.
Play Legacy Twin. You just Lotus Petal your way. With 2 Lotus Petals, you can have Twin be a turn 2/3 instead of 3/4.
Ancient Tomb.
Oh wow, that's way better.
Yeah. Trust me, I've thought about this.
I haven't seen you play it yet though, so that leads me to your conclusions about the deck being less than ideal.
I played it in an open trial. It did not do well, which is why I did not play it in the open.
There sure are a lot of Swords to Plowshares in the format. That can't be great.
Jealous.
Oh, okay. So we're just problem
I have
solved.
all the answers.
All right. Todd just plays a land and no other plays. Goblin Gun's going to swing again. This time it draws Todd a forest. That's not too much concern. Todd has to play stuff, otherwise he discards those extra lands. And now that Todd got a free card, he'll go ahead and Blue Blast.
Yeah, and
guide.
I really like what Todd's doing here. He could have played Glistener Elf on 1, but he really wants to kill that Goblin Guide, preserve his life total a little bit.
Yeah, and here's a card that could do some damage, though. Grim Lavamancer for Robert.
I mean, I was saying I like Todd's play. Maybe this will come back to bite him, I guess, because you used the Blue Elemental Blast on a Goblin Guide. Like, Now Todd has to spend his turn playing out Spellskite, which is fine. That's a reasonable answer to Grim Lavamancer, but maybe it's not what you wanted to be doing on your turn 2.
Yeah, there always is the risk that Robert has boarded in Smash to Smithereens as well, which if you play Spellskite, well, that's real unfortunate. Right, the danger of playing Smash is that between like the 1 Spellskite in Todd's board and the 4 Inkmoth, that's all of his robots. So, and here you see Robert going for a Lightning Bolt on end step. And I've talked with Patrick Sullivan about playing this deck, and I know one of the dangers he said is you really can't let a lot of your burn spells get dazed and spell pierced.
Sure.
Like this, I don't know if you can play around this spell pierced very well, but you see Robert, no 3rd land. He did get his Bolt spell pierced, but then he just untapped, used Grim Lavamancer, took out Glistener Elf, reset.
Yeah, and this is giving him a lot of time to draw out of it, and going long this Grim Lavamancer is going to potentially be a pretty big deal.
Yeah, well, Spellskite will help a lot with that. Right now, Grim Lavamancer is just dealing 2 to the dome, you could say.
Right, but you see, Robert is just able to attack with the Grim Lavamancer, and then what's Todd going to do? Is he going to block and risk losing his Spellskite?
If Robert has the land and the Searing Blaze, that would be real bad for Todd. I think Robert has a Searing Blaze. I'm not sure if he has the land.
I think he drew a 3rd land.
All right, then. That's pretty strong. I think he also has some Price of Progress in his hand. Looking at Todd's mana base, just so you know, the 1 forest in play is his only basic land in the deck. They don't play a basic island, so Price is pretty good here. I mean, granted, they are a deck with days, so they can pick up some of their lands, but he doesn't even have that many wastelands to protect himself from Price.
Yeah, Todd has 1 wasteland, and honestly, it might just come out in this matchup.
Yeah, no point. It doesn't really cast any of your spells. Your spells don't have many colorless symbols in them.
Yeah,
you don't wasteland a burn player. That doesn't really do anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think the wasteland is there to handle things like Maze of Ith. Like the deck has 2 crop rotations, so it's just kind of like a bullet answer.
Yeah, Maze of Ith, I would think that's a card. That card I imagine does a real big number on Infect.
Yeah, you can Vines.
And Robert, I just want to point out a play here. He does have the Mountain. Todd took the 1 damage, and Robert opted not to play his Mountain just to preserve the strength of his Searing Blazes.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense to me, especially if he's not planning on using that mana to cast anything else.
Yeah, I like the play. So Robert is not stuck on 2. He is choosing to remain on 2. And you see here, Red Blast countered a Brainstorm that did allow Todd to play Glistener Elf.
Blighted Agent.
Blighted Agent, thank you.
The blue one.
The blue one. And now a fetch land for Robert. He has 2 more lands in hand. We'll probably see 1 of them now.
Yeah, now either the fetch land can safely come down, or you just play the Mountain because you're going to use the mana this turn.
Mountain, and here's Searing Blaze. He's going to go Blighted Agent and Todd. Well, Todd can redirect that to Spellskite. And he's going to daze it. And a pretty strong daze here, because normally Robert would be like, okay, I will finish off the Spellskite with Grim Lavamancer. If he pays for the daze, that doesn't work. And surprise, Todd plays a 2nd daze. And it's just not going to resolve.
Yeah, so now Todd has active Spellskite, Blighted Agent. Yep. Wow. Robert trying to block. Jokingly.
Even if he could, do you think he would?
Maybe not. I mean, the Spellskite does kind of have him on lockdown, right?
Yeah.
And regardless, I think it's a pretty nice message to send to Todd, right? It's like, oh, hey, man, I wish I could block. I just have nothing for that thing. Just like feign weakness.
Yeah. Todd plays a Glistener Elf. That's now 2 points of power on the board. He does have, if you look at their hands, players are both drawing quite a few lands. Todd just has a Berserk left. Robert has drawn lands for his last 3 turns, so when he originally was stuck on 2, he now has lands all the way up to 6.
Oh, yeah.
It's a little more than he wants. Robert goes to 3 poison here, and we're going to see an end step Price of Progress from Robert Wright.
Yeah, and I don't think Todd minds that. That's 4 damage.
4 is an acceptable number. 6 is where you start getting into this card is nuts territory.
Right.
Like 2 6-point burn spells aren't real magic. Like, what are those? Red Blast drawn as for the turn for Robert. He's going to go ahead and crack a fetch land. He is loading up the graveyard for Grim Lavamancer.
Yeah, you just have to get through that Spellskite at some point.
Yeah, Red Blast not too bad. Takes care of Blighted Agent, which honestly is not too bad. It can't be Spellskited.
Right. And that's definitely a reason to play Red Blast over something like Pyroblast, right? Where Pyroblast can target anything and then it only destroys it if it is blue.
Right. That is the functional difference between the 2 cards. So, right. You know, for the very common Spellskite matchups, that's why we
Well, it's like...
You know, but you're right.
Yeah, I mean, well, some people say, like, oh, you have Grim Lavamancer in your deck. You might want to cast Pyroblast when your opponent has no cards.
Yeah,
so, like, you would want to just, like, Pyroblast your Mountain, for example, just to get a card in the graveyard. So you can't do that with Red Elemental Blast, but it also happens to be good in this situation when you're playing against the Spellskite.
Todd casts Brainstorm. Robert casts the Red Blast. Could have countered the Brainstorm, but said he's going to kill the Blighted Agent with that Brainstorm on the stack.
Yeah, and
it's a close call here.
It is definitely a close call, but I don't mind this at all.
No, I actually think I like it. Todd read the card. It's like, well, good thing you're playing Red Blast and not Pyroblast.
Right.
You know, I don't have options here. And he's going to Brainstorm. And he looks like he found Vines of Astwood. He can win right now, I believe. Right? He has a fetch land. He plays it, cracks it. Vines, Berserk, go to town.
Yeah. So how many cards does Robert have left? Is it just one?
Just one. It's a price.
Yeah. So there's nothing that Todd has to fear, right? Maybe if he has, like, Price Fire Blast, but even then, like, that's still not enough. So, yeah.
And that's 2 cards.
Todd's going for it, especially with Spellskite backup.
Yep, he's going to go ahead and cast Vines with Spellskite backup, and this should do it.
Brainstorm's a hell of a card.
I mean, one of the sad things of playing Burn as your quote-unquote combo deck in Legacy is that you don't get to play Brainstorm. So every time you're playing against another combo deck, you're just in a terrible spot because they play Brainstorm when you don't, and that's just going to make, like, gives them much better late game than you.
Oh, okay, so in this situation, if Robert had 2 cards and it was Price Fire Blast, you could deal him 6 with the price, and Todd has to pay 2 to redirect the Grim Lavamancer, so that would have been lethal if he had another card.
Okay. So yeah, Robert went for his 1 out. He tried to, in response, Grim Lavamancer, the Glistener Elf. Todd paid 2 life for it, so then he had enough mana left over for Berserk, and the 2-card combo takes Robert right down. In 2-1, Todd Anderson moves on to the semifinals.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
How good is this deck?
I don't know, and that's, like, good, I think. I think this matchup, I like how Robert played it. I like